Today, we're counting down the 7 most horrific wedding day deaths ever recorded, a ranking where moments meant to symbolize forever instead became unforgettable nightmares. From silent structural failures to raging infernos, overlooked safety hazards to preventable disasters in lavish venues, each entry exposes devastating irony at the peak of celebration. Which tragedy stands as the deadliest of all? Let's begin with number 7. At a historic mansion built in the 1920s, a wedding celebration drew more than 150 guests for an evening of photos and laughter. The couple, college sweethearts together for 6 years, chose the venue for its charm and reputation. Hundreds of events had filled its halls without incident. During golden hour, the groom and 3 groomsmen gathered on the 3rd-floor balcony for formal portraits. The combined weight of 4 adults, over 750 pounds, rested on timber beams hidden beneath fresh paint. Cosmetic renovations in recent years had covered up deep-seated dry rot and rusted fasteners, but the underlying wood had not been inspected or reinforced. A faint sag in the balcony had been dismissed weeks before as harmless settling. Without warning, the structure failed. All 4 men plunged 35 feet onto the brick courtyard below. The bride, watching from a nearby window, witnessed the collapse and was later hospitalized for shock. The groom died instantly from blunt force trauma. The 3 groomsmen succumbed to their injuries within hours. Emergency responders found the balcony's support beams splintered and decayed, with engineering reports later confirming years of undetected rot. The venue was shut down permanently, and an $8 million lawsuit followed. For the families, the promise of a lifelong union ended in a single preventable fall. At a 4-star hotel in the city center, a newlywed couple checked into the honeymoon suite on the 12th floor, still dressed in their wedding attire. The celebration had ended hours earlier, but behind the scenes, contractors had spent the afternoon rewiring electrical panels for an ongoing renovation. To speed up work, management ordered the fire suppression system disabled, a decision documented in internal emails but never disclosed to guests. At 3:20 a.m., a short circuit sparked behind the wall, igniting insulation and sending toxic smoke into the hallway. The suite's windows, sealed shut for energy efficiency, offered no escape. Within 4 minutes, carbon monoxide levels in the room reached fatal concentrations. First responders found the couple collapsed together near the window, both victims of acute smoke inhalation. The fire marshal's timeline confirmed the suppression system never activated, allowing smoke to fill multiple floors unchecked. Autopsy results showed lethal carboxyhemoglobin saturation. The hotel remained closed for 2 years as investigators uncovered records of repeated safety bypasses. A $15 million settlement followed, and the unlicensed contractor responsible for the faulty wiring faced criminal charges. For the families, the final image was of 2 lives ended side by side, suffocated by a chain of preventable decisions. A white stretch limousine rolled through the dusk along a rural highway, carrying the bride, groom, and 4 closest friends toward a reception that would never begin. The couple, high school sweethearts from a small town, had planned every detail for months. Their families followed behind in separate cars, eager to join the celebration. The limousine company, fined 3 times in the past 2 years for safety violations, had skipped essential brake repairs after a recall notice. That afternoon, the assigned driver started his 14th consecutive hour behind the wheel. By the time he reached the intersection at County Road 17, fatigue had dulled his reflexes. He was texting a dispatcher when the limo approached a stop sign at 55 miles per hour. The brakes, never serviced, failed to respond. The vehicle rolled into the crossing, directly into the path of a loaded semi-truck. The impact crushed the passenger compartment, killing 5 instantly: the bride, groom, maid of honor, best man, and a bridesmaid. The remaining bridesmaid survived with a severed spinal cord, paralyzed from the chest down. Parents trailing the limo witnessed the collision and arrived at the scene within moments, confronted by the wreckage and the silence of lost futures. Emergency crews reconstructed the crash, confirming a braking distance less than half of what was required for the vehicle's weight. DMV records revealed overdue inspections and falsified maintenance logs. 300 guests waited at the reception hall for news that would never come. The company faced a $22 million lawsuit and criminal investigation. For the families, the memory of that highway would eclipse every joyful plan that came before. An 1890s warehouse transformed into a modern wedding venue filled with 180 guests, 30 above its legal limit. The bride and groom, both architects, had chosen the space for its exposed brick and open floor plan, trusting in its character and history. Their private messages to the venue owner referenced their professional confidence in the building's safety. Permitting files, however, showed the conversion never included a structural reinforcement of the original floor joists. No inspection had been logged in over 6 years. The first dance began just after 8 p.m. As the couple moved across the center of the old timber floor, guests crowded around the edges, drawn in for photos and applause. The 20 by 20 foot section beneath them was supported by joists that had been exposed to decades of moisture and dry rot, hidden by cosmetic repairs. Load calculations later revealed the actual weight on that section exceeded safe capacity by more than 40%. Without warning, a sharp crack echoed through the room. The floor dropped 8 feet into the basement below, taking the couple and more than 30 guests with it. The bride died instantly from a skull fracture on impact. The groom, pinned by a splintered beam, suffered fatal internal injuries and was pronounced dead within 6 minutes. Emergency crews arrived to chaos. Injured guests trapped in debris, panicked family members searching for loved ones. Coroner's records would list 2 deaths at the scene, with dozens more hospitalized for fractures, lacerations, and blunt trauma. City engineers condemned the building within 24 hours. Investigation reports cited missing load rating paperwork and permit deficiencies throughout the renovation process. The venue's insurance settled for $18 million. 3 weeks after the funeral, the groom's father died of a heart attack attributed to acute stress. For every survivor, the memory of the first dance is now inseparable from the collapse that followed. A country club's outdoor pavilion hosted a wedding reception for 220 guests, with the bride's younger sister standing as maid of honor. The two had been inseparable since childhood, and the family had spent months preparing for this day. Late afternoon storms swept through the area the night before, damaging an underground electrical conduit and an exterior breaker box near the event patio. The groundskeeper's log noted a flickering light and exposed wires at dawn, but the entry was never relayed to management. The club, already overdue for 2 mandated electrical inspections, pressed ahead with the schedule. As evening settled, guests gathered on the metal platform for the bouquet toss, a tradition the sisters had joked about for years. The bride's sister caught the bouquet in a burst of laughter, then reached out to steady herself on the platform's edge. At that moment, a 240-volt current surged through the metal, completing a circuit from her hand to her feet. Muscle contraction locked her in place for 8 seconds. The groom, rushing to help, received a secondary shock but was thrown clear by the force. Witnesses described a sharp crack, the scent of ozone, and the sudden collapse of the maid of honor. Emergency responders arrived within minutes, but the autopsy later confirmed instant cardiac arrest. ECG tracings from the scene showed no electrical activity. Resuscitation attempts proved futile. The bride, still barefoot from the dance floor, stood just feet away, watching her sister's body remain rigid until the current subsided. Family members and friends, many of whom had watched the sisters grow up together, struggled to process the scene. The wedding dissolved in confusion and grief. In the months that followed, the bride's mental health deteriorated. She attempted suicide twice, and the marriage ended within half a year. The club faced a $12 million lawsuit, and state regulators overhauled inspection protocols requiring real-time reporting of electrical hazards for all event venues. Inspection dockets and groundskeeper logs became central evidence in court. For everyone present, the day intended to celebrate family became a permanent reminder of how invisible risks can destroy even the closest bonds. A rustic barn set on rolling farmland hosted 250 guests for an 11 p.m. sparkler send-off, the final tableau of a day built on music, vows, and family reunions. The bride and groom, both musicians who met at a festival, had chosen the venue for its open fields and vintage charm. Guests lined up in 2 rows, sparklers blazing as the couple prepared to walk through a shimmering archway. Wind gusts, measured later at 8 miles per hour, swept through the property. A single spark, carried by the breeze, drifted 30 feet to an open-sided storage shed. Inside, the venue owner had stacked dozens of cases of professional-grade fireworks, intended for a 4th of July event the following week. No lock secured the door. The spark landed among the cartons. Investigators would later confirm the ignition point by analyzing burn patterns and inventory logs. Within seconds, a low-order detonation triggered a chain reaction. A shockwave tore through the barnyard, sending shrapnel and fire in every direction. The groom, closest to the shed, was struck in the thigh by a fragment of metal casing. The wound severed his femoral artery. He bled out in under 4 minutes despite frantic efforts from guests and paramedics. The bride's father, standing between his daughter and the blast, was killed instantly by the primary explosion. 2 additional guests died, one from blunt trauma, another trampled in the chaos as the crowd stampeded for safety. More than 40 others suffered burns, lacerations, or crush injuries, with 16 requiring intensive care. The aftermath was recorded in hospital intake logs and forensic diagrams. Blood-stained wedding attire became evidence in the investigation. The bride, in a dress soaked with her husband's blood, gave testimony at the State House weeks later. Fire marshal reports cited gross negligence. Fireworks stored in violation of ATF and NFPA codes, no fire separation, no emergency plan. The property owner and event planner faced involuntary manslaughter charges. The venue's insurance settled with victims' families for $28 million. Legislators moved quickly, passing a statewide ban on fireworks storage within 150 feet of any public assembly venue. Pyrotechnic use at barn weddings, once a trendy photo opportunity, was sharply curtailed across the industry. For survivors, the trauma endured long after the headlines faded. Medical records documented months of reconstructive surgery and psychological counseling. The bride, who had chosen a sparkler exit for its symbolism of joy and new beginnings, now marked each anniversary in black. The explosion's ripple effect reached well beyond the farm, reshaping event safety laws and ending a tradition that had promised nothing but celebration. A luxury vineyard in California prepared for its final spectacle as dusk settled over the hills. The wedding, valued at over $400,000, drew 180 in-person guests and 500,000 online viewers. The couple, both social media influencers, had documented every step of their relationship, from the viral engagement to the day's elaborate ceremony. Their exit was planned as a global event. A helicopter departure streamed live across multiple platforms, coordinated with drones and professional camera crews. The aircraft, a Bell 206, was chartered for the occasion. Maintenance logs later revealed that its last comprehensive inspection was 6 months overdue. FAA records listed the pilot as fully licensed, but his medical certificate had expired pending review for a heart condition. The flight manifest showed a total load, passengers, crew, and camera equipment, that exceeded the manufacturer's recommended maximum by 120 pounds. At 7:42 p.m., the helicopter lifted off from the vineyard's lawn, climbing to 300 feet. Wind speed measured at 14 knots, just below the operator's safety threshold. Within seconds, the aircraft began to yaw unexpectedly. Onboard audio captured in the live stream recorded the pilot's rapid breathing, clipped instructions, and then a sudden silence. NTSB reconstruction, using metadata from the multiple live feeds, pinpointed the moment control was lost. The pilot suffered a cardiac event, confirmed by autopsy, incapacitating him as the machine entered an uncontrolled spiral. The helicopter crashed 200 yards from the reception tent, impacting the ground at a 60-degree angle. The bride died instantly from blunt force trauma. The groom, trapped by collapsed fuselage and pinned by burning wreckage, remained conscious for nearly 4 minutes. His cries, captured on both the live stream and guests' smartphones, were later analyzed by forensic audio specialists. The pilot was pronounced dead at the scene. Emergency response was hampered by the scale of the crowd and the confusion of guests, many of whom believed the crash was a planned stunt. Fire crews arrived within 7 minutes, but by then, the aircraft was fully engulfed. The NTSB investigation cited 3 primary factors: the pilot's undisclosed medical history, the aircraft's over-limit weight due to camera equipment, and overdue maintenance on critical flight controls. Maintenance logs showed missing signatures for required airworthiness directives. FAA dockets included statements from the charter company, admitting to pressure from event planners to proceed despite known risks. The crash was broadcast live to an audience of hundreds of thousands, with the footage rapidly circulating on social media platforms and news outlets worldwide. Attempts to remove the video proved futile, as copies proliferated across the internet. The legal aftermath included a $45 million settlement paid by the charter operator's insurer, the largest in U.S. wedding industry history. Regulatory agencies responded by issuing an immediate ban on helicopter wedding exits nationwide and revising pilot fitness and charter compliance standards. The couple's social media accounts remain online, now serving as digital memorials. For the families and the millions who witnessed the tragedy in real time, the promise of forever ended in a moment of spectacle, transforming a symbol of new beginnings into the most documented wedding day death ever recorded. From a 35-foot balcony collapse to a live-streamed helicopter crash watched by 500,000 people, this countdown has exposed the most horrific wedding day deaths ever recorded. Across all 7 entries, one pattern stands out. Behind each tragedy was a preventable failure: overlooked structural rot, disabled safety systems, ignored warnings, or reckless decisions by professionals. The most shocking cases, like the sparkler sendoff explosion and the helicopter disaster, reveal how even luxury venues and high-profile celebrations are not immune to catastrophic oversight. These deaths didn't happen in dangerous places. They struck at the heart of supposed safety, surrounded by loved ones and meticulous planning. The list proves that the ultimate irony of wedding day deaths lies in their contrast between expected joy and sudden, violent loss. In every case, a day meant to symbolize forever became a reminder of how quickly life can change when hidden hazards go unchecked. The real lesson? Even life's happiest moments demand vigilance, because tragedy can strike when we least expect it.